It's great to know that you're still there. We're moving straight to our first discussion segment on the program this morning. Now we're looking at setting national agenda for 2020. Yes, you would realize that we kept talking about the issue of the calendar for 2020, which we feel that it's quite going to be very humongous and, of course, very complicated and complex, given the fact that we have the economy, we have insecurity, we have social insecurity, and, of course, socio-economic factors across the country itself. Let's also look at the issue of welfare. There are so many factors that the nation will be looking at as we are heading towards 2020. So some people will say it's an over-bloated calendar itself. But to look at this agenda with us this morning is a person of Dr. Bayo Busari. And of course, we're looking at setting national agenda for 2020. He's a lecturer, Leeds City University. It's great to have you back. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your time. So as we approach 2020, what should be the national agenda? As a country, what should we pursue?
Well, we cannot look at 2020 without taking stock of 2019. How did we fare in the year that is now about to hand off? You agree that it's been quite challenging, the outgoing year, a lot of issues, security, economy, socio-political issues, especially that we just came out of election. 2019 was election year, and there were quite a lot of issues that were raised during the electioneering. And of course, majority of them would not be able to tackle them, probably due to the fact that the government that came in, that succeeded itself, had a lot that had to battle with before the election, especially in the area of insecurity, terrorist attack, issue of banditry, herdsmen, and what have you. And we would not be able to come out of that before we went to the election. And of course, it has not gone away. So these are things that we are likely to carry over into 2020. And I want to believe that all hands have to be on deck to make sure that we tackle this in headlong than we did in 2019.
Let's look at the Millennium Goals. We used to have new Millennium Goals at a point in time. Then later we drifted into SDGs. Well, if we look at Nigeria, have we really made any progress when it even comes to developmental issues? Let's look at our healthcare sector, for instance. Let's look at education. Let's look at the issues of basic amenities. How come we have been drifting around the cycle, like we've been going through a cycle? We've not been able to nail it to say that this is one major thing that we have really come out of, and of course we've made huge success, apart from the telecommunication industry that even appears to be milking the people as we are today.
Well, I think the problem we have is that the Millennium Goals we talk about, they are not programs that originated from Nigeria.
But we keyed into it.
We keyed into it, yes. When those programs were being put together, we have our own peculiarities. Other countries have their own. It's supposed to be a global program, and then every country should look at which aspect of it should be able to key into. But the program didn't take into cognizance our own peculiarities. And I think government too ought to have probably look for a way to domesticate those goals, take into cognizance our peculiarities. We have a lot of peculiarities in Nigeria. When we talk, we are here to talk as a nation, as one individual.
That's exactly the point. You know, ability to talk as a nation. Now, you look at the United States, irrespective and in spite of the challenges confronting that nation, you still see the US talking one voice. A lot of people would say it's because they don't have the kind of diversity that we have here in Nigeria. But let's look at this call for restructuring. It was rife in 2019. A lot of people, called attention to the fact that if only we can get this country restructured, Nigeria will be a better place. Do you agree with them, such that that becomes one of our agenda for next year, and pursue it?
Yeah, I'm for restructuring. The only issue there is that we have not agreed on the principles, on the modalities that we have to adopt for restructuring. When we talk about restructuring, what are we restructuring? These are things that we should first discuss before we can say, okay, we have to first agree on the modalities, agree on the principles. If we agree globally, yes, we need to restructure. What exactly do we want to restructure? When we know that, then we'll be able to design means of achieving our target. Now, we are talking about not talking as a nation. First, you see yourself as a Yoruba man before you begin to talk of Nigeria. You see yourself as a Christian or as a Muslim. Okay? You see yourself as belonging to one section, one political party, one political ideology, and what have you. Whereas, if as a nation we have our own development blueprint, every individual that comes in government, every political party that takes control of government will pursue its own program within that developmental blueprint for the country.
The 2014 National Conference, was it not meant to do that? There are a lot of recommendations, over 200 of them. Don't you think that if perhaps in 2020 we pick up these recommendations from where they're gathering dust and we begin to implement them, aren't we going somewhere?
Yeah, you see, yes. The problem with our 2014 conference, when you look at the way the conference came about, there's a problem. And I think that's why the thing has not...
How did it come about?
Okay, good. Before 2014, the sitting president at that time, Dr. Jonathan, was talking that he didn't believe in a national conference. All of a sudden, he made a U-turn and said, okay, let's have it. And that was at the time when we were preparing to go into elections. And you remember at that time, the All Progressive Congress did not take part in that conference.
You see, this is an issue. Now, I want you to, clarify this. When an interest group does not participate in a particular thing, because similar thing is playing out in your states too, and of course in some other states. If you do not participate in a particular thing, does it nullify the potency of that particular thing?
That's a very good question, and I will begin from your state. I've had reason to discuss with some politicians, especially in the area of local government election. And I said, when do we stop this cycle of nonsense? I call it cycle of nonsense in the sense that the fact that you don't participate in an activity does not nullify that activity. Okay? But we personalize governance in this country. We had local government election, whether it was right, whether it was wrong, we had an election. If we are going to correct whatever that was wrong with that, we have to correct it through a process. And I think the judiciary is there to assist us in that regard. Now, when we had that conference in 2014, APC didn't take part. And what happened? Unfortunately, PDP lost that election. APC that didn't take part in the conference, assumed control of government. Unfortunately, again, the outcome of that conference didn't get to the National Assembly on time. The National Assembly didn't sit on it to pass it into law. Okay? The fact that you have that, we still have to take it to the National Assembly. Because we can't do anything with the National Assembly. It's the only organ in the country that makes laws for us, that regulates our activities through due process of the law. So we didn't have that. And when APC came on board, it didn't do anything on that. And we all kept quiet about it. So we have to get to the point where whatever that we do, we have to legalize it. So that whoever that comes in does not change it. You don't say because I don't believe in something, and then you want to overturn what the majority has taken.
But let's also look at even development in the country. Like, for instance, can we be at the same level of development in the country? Not that we begin to say Lagos State has achieved greater success in so many aspects of economic development, even security-wise and the rest of it. How come we've not been able to grow at the same level? Are we saying that there is no even distribution of resources when it comes to national allocations to units of government like states as we have it? What will make us grow like in the same rate, at the same level, like what we have in advanced countries?
It's not possible for us to grow at the same rate. It's not. It can never be possible. Let's go back to the time when we had the regions. Each region had its own resources, which is controlled, and
it cannot be regulated.
You can't regulate development. You cannot, because there are certain factors that will determine what happens. That is dynamic. We run a federal system of government, and in law, but in principle, we've not been doing that. In principle, when we run federalism the way it should be run, we cannot develop at the same rate. What we are doing is a quasi-federalism, a kind of a mixture of federal system and unitary system. That's what we do. Even in America, all states in America are not developing at the same rate. You develop at your own pace.
But I observed something. Between 1966 and 1963, when we had regional government in place, it appears the regions developed at the same pace.
No. Region had different resources, and each of the regions had its own developmental agenda. Like in the south, in the western region, our main priority was education, and all resources that we had, we put them to finance education. And of course, when you develop human resources, that's what will help you to grow every other aspect of your life. So, other regions had its own priority. The East had its own, the North had its own. When we had the Central, North Center, it had its own. The problem that we've had to date is because we are determining that you should grow at this rate. You should grow and wait for this person to grow. No. Let each person grow at his own pace.
But the disparity level,
to his own resources.
Let's also look at the disparities between these units of government. Talking about the states now, we are supposed to be practicing federal system of government. If you look at the disparity in terms of growth in some of these units of government, it's something that you can't even talk about. Let's go to the core north, for instance. You find out that basic amenities are not there. For instance, how many hospitals are in some local governments like in Taraba, Jigawa, and all of this core north? You see a vast space of land. There are no structures on it. So when you begin to talk about development not being at the same pace, how can we match this disparity? How can we ensure that the loopholes in this disparity is tightened in a way?
Now, you see, we are here to accept that government is supposed to be for the people, and that whoever that comes in governance ought to know what is coming there to do. They are supposed to be a kind of an engagement between the people and whoever is going to govern them before the person comes in government. There are supposed to be an understanding by the man who is coming to govern. What exactly is he coming there to do? He should have a blueprint. The state should have its own blueprint. I said it that in Oyo State, for instance, where we talk about free education, it should be a discussion between the government and the people. There should be an agreement. We want free education, fine. What type of free education do we have? Do we need? Who is going to finance what? What's the role of the government? What's the role of the parent? It's a symbiotic relationship. When you say education, if it's not free, someone is paying for it somewhere. I might not be paying. If my child is going to school, I might not be paying for it. Someone is paying. Because someone pays teachers' salary, someone puts in place infrastructure, someone pays for running costs. So it's not free. So we should understand.
Is that not the duty of a government to do?
It is the duty of the government, but there should be an agreement between the people and the government, so that if this government leaves, another government comes, you don't say, well, the man that was there was interested in education, I'm not interested. You understand? It is your right to go to be educated. So it should be written. Not that I want it, you don't want it. You understand? So when you make it a law that from primary 1 to certain level, it should be free to this extent, And any parent that does not bring his child to school, it should be the responsibility of the state to force that parent to do that.
Let's look at where we are coming from. Someone would say that, I've heard it from people, even from scholars, that the problem of this country started in 1914 when Lord Lugard amalgamated the southern and the northern protectorate. Now, has there been any Nigerian project? We've heard of American projects, and of course they guard it jealously. Has there been a Nigerian project?
There has never been.
There has never been known.
And that's been our problem.
That has been our problem. But can we have a project?
We can if we want to.
So what would your suggestion be that this project, should be, if we're going to have, and if we can have one?
Okay. Now, we should have. Because we don't have, that means we are directionless. If you want to build a house, you have a building plan that has been drawn for you and been approved. And then you are guided by that. And you should be able to measure the level of achievement that you had. What do we use to measure the level of our development in the country? Because we don't have a Nigerian project. What we've been had so far have been individuals, political parties, coming to say, yeah, we'll do this. When that party leaves, another party comes, yes.
Isn't that movement?
So how do we get to do that? Now we have a National Assembly in place. There should be an agreement between the National Assembly and the people that they represent. Okay, what exactly do we need as a people? What do we want? Where are we going? And how do we get there? So it is at the level of the National Assembly to now discuss. If they need assistance, they can now ask for assistance from the people.
To you, what's the most pressing need of this nation today?
Well, the most pressing need of this nation today is for us to develop human beings.
Human capital development.
Capital development. That's the most pressing. When you do that, then you can now, as an individual, think, what I've gained, how does the society benefit from it? When an American wakes up in the morning, he prays for his country. When a Nigerian wakes up in the morning, does he pray for the country? Simply because the country does know that it exists. So the country has to take cognizance that it has people, and it has to work for those people. And when it does that, then it will be a payback. When you know that your country has invested in you, definitely you want to plow back from what you have gained.
So are you saying that perhaps in order to achieve this human capital development in 2020, for instance, maybe there should be free education even at the federal level? Is that possible? Because Awolowo is being talked about today because he built humans, he invested in human capital development, and everyone who benefited from that particular system would not forget him in haste. So are you saying that in order to achieve that, there should be a sort of a replicate of what Awolowo did, even at the federal level? Is it possible?
Let's remove the word free. Let's discuss education.
Education.
Okay? When we discuss it and we agree that we need to be educated, we can now decide the type that we want. Whether it's going to be absolutely free, whether it's going to be partially free. First, we have to agree that we need to be educated. When we accept that, then we can now say, okay, to this extent government finances this. To see this extent the parent or whoever finances this. You understand? Basically, we need education as a people. No country can develop, no country can grow when you have an illiterate society, citizenry. Because it is very, very easy for you to control someone who is knowledgeable. When you put a signpost, don't do this, the man that cannot read and write will look at what you are putting and doesn't understand what.
On the contrary, let's go back a bit. There was free education here, okay? Let's say there was education here in the past, during the days of Awolowo, when we were operating regional government. And of course, we had some regions that did not take education as important as the Southwest. One of the bane of this society today is the fact that those ones that didn't embrace education at that time have produced the highest number of presidents that this country has ever had, and others that embraced education are agitated, and so it calls to question what is the essence of education in the first place.
Politics is a game of number. Okay, it's not a matter of education.
So education cannot affect politics.
education affects politics, but at the same time, when it comes to number, it now beholds how you're able to exploit your education to convince. That's why I said it is easier for you to control a literate populace than an illiterate one. So when you sit over an illiterate populace, you can manipulate them, but you cannot manipulate a literate populace.
Okay, that said, let's also look at other factors here. Do you think, as a matter of fact, that this government has an agenda for 2020? From what you've been saying,
it's not this government. We never had a government. It's not about a particular government. We've never had. And unfortunately, you mentioned 1914. Our problem was compounded.
So there's never been any
We've
agenda.
never had. Our problem was compounded when we got independence. When we were struggling to have independence, we didn't have a particular reason, except that we just want to take control.
Nigeria was not mature for independence when it got it.
It was not a matter of maturity. We did not have a reason, except that we want to have the British to go. We didn't have a reason to say, we as a people want to govern ourselves, and this is what we want to do for ourselves.
Ghana gained independence in 1958. Our case is not different from that of Ghana, but of course, Ghana is better off today.
Peculiarities differ.
They also have
orientation differ.
They have diversities.
They have diversity, but
too.
not as what we have in Nigeria. It's not the way we play it here that they play it out there.
But let's
put,
because you mentioned Ghana now, let's put the Jerry Rawlings factor into there. Do we have that kind of boldness in Nigerian politics, where we have people who will stand for the people and fight the same system that they have worked in? Have we ever seen that in Nigeria? You talked about peculiarities, and of course they changing the game when it comes to their independence and making the best use of it. Do we have such factor in Nigeria, the Jerry Rawlings factor?
I'm sorry, I can't hold brief for any military junta because I don't believe in it. And I think that's the major problem that we have in this country.
They don't believe in it.
I don't believe.
But if you look back, sincerely yours,
if you look back, for whatever reason, I do not believe.
But if you look back, it appears, the eyes of this country were achieved during this military junta.
I do not. I cannot excuse whatever achievement I was made under any military junta. I can't excuse it because in the first instance, it's not supposed to be. If we had not had that break in 1966, we may not be faced with the problem that we are confronting now. The military did more harms.
That's the excuse. That's the excuse we get to hear. About 20 years down the lane, we're talking about 2 decades. Are Nigerians better off? Now we're experiencing democracy. Some persons are even saying perhaps it's better to go back to Egypt. So we are saying, are we saying 20 years is not just enough for us, to experiment? And this that we are experimenting, is it working for the people, Doctor?
It's quite interesting. Look at the bulk of the people that you have in governance now. Majority of them are products of the military, and they had that military orientation, and we've not been able to debrief them. We have not accepted the tenets of democracy, the way it is practiced, where we borrowed it from, and that's a problem.
Let me cast your mind back to 2015. One of the reasons why President Muhammadu Buhari was voted into power, was because at that time he was seen as a military man. So do you think that Nigerians do not really buy into the philosophy of the military man?
Being a military man is different from taking control of government forcefully. There's nothing that precludes you from contesting elected offices if you have been a military man.
So is the purpose not defeated if you still have khaki men putting on agbada?
No, it's different. In America, you had ex-military men who have been their president. In Britain, you have had ex-military men who have been their prime ministers. Okay? The difference is this. You are a journalist. If you retire from service or you believe that you can do better in politics, you can go into politics. A military man, not someone who takes control of government forcefully, can retire from service and go into politics. Of course, you will need experience. You need the experience of Dangote if you decide to leave business to come into politics. You need the experience of any lecturer in the university if you decide to leave.
So you are saying, as a matter of fact, that we do not operate on a true democratic tenets. That's what you're saying. Then you are also afraid that we don't have any 2020 agenda.
You see, the agenda we are supposed to have in 2020 is supposed to be an agenda that we've had and that we are working on. Not that we are just planning that January.
But we had an 8-point agenda by late President Umar Yar'Adua. And of course, he brought key critical sector of the economy on the table. Are you saying that this structure of agenda that late President Umar Yar'Adua had, it's not been followed to date? It's not been looked at?
Fantastic. Late Umar Yar'Adua, not Nigeria.
But he was a past president.
No, excuse me. Yar'Adua believed that if I get there, this is what I'm going to do. Obasanjo believed that if he got there, this is what he was going to do. Jonathan did say, Buhari too is doing same. Okay? Individual beliefs, not national belief. That's the difference. The difference is, if you have a national agenda designed by the people, if I'm coming in as president, I can't go outside those things, the programs that have been put there in place before I get there. What I'm going to do is, how do I work those programs to make sure that they become reality? Not what I believe. What I believe when I leave. Another person is coming with his own belief. It might be different from my belief.
Who coordinates the people's agenda now? Is it not going to be government influence for them to have an agenda, people-oriented agenda? How does that come into being?
Now we have a National Assembly. It is now the duty of the National Assembly to sit down and formulate for us a development agenda.
What happens to Vision 2020? You know, at that time when it was being touted, it was as if 2020 was
a magical year.
So some 50, 100 years to come. And here we are, Vision 2020.
Yeah,
you remember?
Vision 2020, yes. Whose idea? Okay?
Shouldn't leaders' ideas be a national idea?
When you say, it could be a national idea, when everybody has keyed into it and have accepted it and have taken it away from him, it's no longer his own idea. Yeah, you propagated the idea. If you all take it, it's not your idea. We can only ascribe it to you. Yes, you gave all this idea. But once we have accepted it, it's no longer your idea. So whoever that comes will know that he's working on those ideas. That's the issue we have now. And in 2020, I will expect our National Assembly to sit down, discuss with the people.
You've been calling out the National Assembly.
Yes.
Let's look at what we have presently, because we've never ceased to have, lawmakers since 1999. What's your impression about these ones?
I think so far there's been a difference between what we have now and especially what you have in the immediate past National Assembly. Some people have been talking that this National Assembly is a kind of
rubber stamp.
I do not share that sentiment. Why do I say that? When each of the members of the National Assembly campaigned, none of them campaigned that they were going to be antagonistic to the executive. So you have a relationship that is mutual, that's cordial between the two of them. I think we should encourage it. And of course, we can monitor them. And the only way we can develop meaningfully is when there is a kind of a mutual relationship between the arms of lawmaking and the arms of the executive.
But forthrightness can also be a national agenda.
Yeah.
In some countries, they've developed to an extent. In Tanzania, under the watch of President Magufuli, for instance, there is this national agenda. There is a way things run there. In Rwanda, under Paul Kagame, a country that was once devastated is becoming the growing, one of the fastest growing economies on the continent now. Let's look at it. 264 billion naira was said to have been added to the budget. If it were to be under the watch of the 8th National Assembly, we would have been hearing issues like pardon and all of that. But everyone is silent now. So it suggests that what is happening between the legislature now and the executive is, I rub your palm, you rub my back. That's what Nigerians are seeing. Look at the frivolous, allocations. Nigerians are kicking when you have the leadership of the National Assembly saying anything brought by Mr. President is good for Nigerians. What does this suggest?
Now, if you don't have it that way, what do we expect? Let me give us an example that is very closer to us here. Governor Sheyi Makinde took his appointment bid to the State House of Assembly, when it came out, it was bigger than what went in. Was that assembly a rubber stamp?
People have their reservations.
Yeah, people have their reservations. Don't forget that these lawmakers too are representing the people, and they know what their people want. And of course, they can discuss. But what I expect at any rate was a discussion before the presentation of the budget. I can go to Ministry of Works, Education, or whatever, and then within my constituency, these are our needs. That can be incorporated into the budget. Not that when the budget is now brought and you are inputting into it, it raises suspicion. Of
Okay,
course,
our time is actually fast spent, but what are some of your keywords in terms of the 2020 agenda? You've said that the National Assembly should come up with a national development agenda itself. How do they follow this through?
Yeah, they can follow that through by engaging with the people, to know, to identify. They know, they are from us. They are not alien to us. They know what we want, and they should know that when Nigeria is better, they benefit from it. Everybody benefits from it. And I expect again that we should discuss issue of insecurity more seriously than we did in 2019. And of course, infrastructure. Ongoing projects have to be, seriously pursued. So we don't, let's make sure that funds are released as at when due, so that this thing can be done.
Okay.
Especially roads, we lose a lot of lives.
We must say thank you so much to Dr. Bayo Busari.
Thank you.
And of course, he is a lecturer at Leeds City University. We've been looking at setting national agenda for 2020, and of course, he has called on the National Assembly to key into this factor, work along with the people, and bring up a national development outline so that we'll have a more clearer year in 2020. And of course, we take a break. When we come back, it will be another guest and another topic. Please stay with us.